Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be a very exciting day, specifically if you're like me, a huge fan of Lamborghini, because I'm on my way to my friend's PJ's office and we're gonna have a look at some of his cars in his so-called office collection, which includes 4 Lamborghinis, and more specifically I'm gonna take a deep dive into his Aventador SVJ Roadster, one of only 800 made. So that's gonna be super fun to have a look at that and show it to you and share it with you guys. So with that said, let's get started. Guys, as a bonus today, I'll have to show you this beautiful Lamborghini Huracán Evo. I absolutely love everything about this car, and the thing with PJ's cars, the modifications that he does to the cars is exactly the type of mods that I would do if I own these cars as well. They're very subtle, but they make a huge difference. For example, you have the wheels always flush with the bodywork of the car, and that to me just improves the stance. And I'm gonna walk you through this car and show you all the details on the outside and the inside as well, because this is a car that you just have to see in this video. Even though it wasn't planned, I just have to show you this beauty right here. All right guys, let's start with the rear. What I love about the Evo in relation to the regular Huracan is that the exhausts on the Evo are now centered up top, almost right next to the license plates, and I'm going to show you more of that when we talk about the SVJ later in this video. And you have the firing order here of the V10 on this plaque here, and beautifully glass cover over the V10 engine right there. And I love these design features, typical Lamborghini style, and this color just makes me want to jump in and swim in it basically. And I think, as I've said before, usually I'm not really a fan of black wheels, but I think it works on this car right here. The problem with black wheels usually is that they don't pop. You can't really tell the design on camera when you look at it because of the contrast. So I'm gonna try and modify this video to show you the exact design of these beautiful wheels. And of course it's staggered. You have almost a flatter design in the front, and if you look at the rear, you can see how it fits within the wheel arch right there. It's a beautifully spec'd car. We're going to talk about the interior in just a minute here, but let's first have a look at the front end from this angle as well. It just looks sick sitting here, and planted as well, and it's just typical Miami color. If you live in South Florida, this is the color you should have. If you have a Porsche, one of my favorite colors of the Porsche is of course the Miami blue, but I have to say I think this looks even better than the Miami blue. Just look at how good it looks in the sunshine. Guys, we can't have a Lambo out without firing it up and hearing what it sounds like, so let's do just that. Alright guys, we're inside the Lamborghini Huracán Evo, and just look at this beautiful fully digital display right there, super high resolution. You also have this brand new display here, which is new for the updated Huracán, the Evo. I just love all of these dials up here. It feels like you're in a fighter jet, and of course you've seen this before, the coolest launch of an engine ever. And you have this switch right here for the reverse and parking manual transmission. Here you can choose that up here. Well, let's put it in Corsa and let's hear how nuts this sounds. Take a listen. Now we also have this rev counter. It's different from, for example, the Sport and the Corsa. The Corsa is blue. Sport, it turns a little bit angry, just a little angry, and then you have the full-on Corsa mode, which looks like this. And it sounds absolutely nuts. Even in here, the door is open, I know. All right, let's turn it off and let's talk a little bit about this interior here. You have this carbon fiber seats here. It's just a shell with some padding on top of the shell. It's a very beautiful looking seat, and honestly it's pretty comfortable in here. Even though these doesn't have our bolstering to the seats, it still feels comfortable and it still feels like I could do a long road trip in this car. So here is the full view of the interior of this Evo. It's beautifully done. I love the blue on, or the, I don't know if you can call this blue, it's more turquoise on yellow stitching around the steering wheel right here and up here, and also on the dashboard around there. It goes back into the seats. Now the crazy part about with PJ is that he seems to love Lambos, and who can blame him? Here is his daily driver. This is a also a very unique spec'd Urus. It has a white exterior. The interior, this is where it gets crazy, all blue. I think it's such a cool color combination, and it's not just blue, it's like almost a neon style blue to this interior. Very beautiful as well, and very unique spec for an Aventador. And then you have the forged carbon fiber up here, and a lot of awesome cool details in the back. You have the infotainment system right there. Pretty cool and pretty nuts. And then this center stack right here, just have to show you how this looks. Same thing here. It's like the jets for a airplane. You just turn the engines on by just tilting these back and forth. That's what it reminds me of. As always, Lamborghini, crazy designs. Just wanted to quickly show you what this looks like inside as well. As I said before, black wheels. This looks like the Stormtrooper style design for this specific Urus, and I like it. I think the wheels work well when you have black on white, because it creates such a huge contrast between the two parts of the car. Same with the Tesla Model X. I like it when they have the white pearl with the black wheels. Only a few cars that really works well with the black wheels, and I think this is definitely one of them right here. Here's PJ himself walking us through the beautifully spec'd Huracán Evo, and talk us about the color of this thing right here. What is it called?
So this is called Blue Glocko. I originally put this in play in 2018 with doing the first Blue Glocko perf ever, and as a result of that I really got hooked on it ever since. Every single Huracan that I ever spec is always this color, and I think the secondary hides in yellow is what brings it together. But this particular spec was done to match identically what my perf spec was, except in an Evo, which was basically a perf like without a wing, right? So the same thing, we did basically all the plastic in gloss black below, so instead of having that ugly plastic like that looks like this throughout the car,
yeah, a little matte,
we basically have it painted black. We did the perf wheels, the sport seats, and I even then added some Novitec suspension, spacers, and carbon vents on the inside. So it basically has every option possible from the factory, except the carbon vents, because the carbon vents the factory offers are forged carbon, and there's no forged carbon anywhere on the car. So to match the seats, I did this custom, basically regular carbon vents, so it flows with the car better, and the little spacers and the little touches is what makes the car really unique.
Yeah, especially when you talk about the stance of cars. You gotta have the right stance on cars, and I think
every car in my garage always has perfect stance.
Yeah, that's perfect. The thing. That's the thing. And it's not. They're not overly done either. No, it's not like South.
Perfection. Yeah.
It's not like South Florida craziness.
Sometimes you get the best of the best by doing what I call an OEM Plus mod, which is to basically bring together some of the basic components of what already accentuates the car and just make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like the wheels are beautiful, but the car's too high. So by lowering it but not slamming it, you make it look like it came this way from the factory.
Yeah.
By adding spacers, you retain the beauty of the wheels.
And you have the same kind of distance all around here.
Yeah, exactly.
So it
and
fills,
on the front, it's not slammed. You know, so it doesn't look like it came out of the factory like any different. You know, a lot of people see this car, they're like, why is this one better looking than the other ones I've seen in those?
It's all in the details.
Yeah, it's in the details, big time. And this was the first car to introduce the sport seats for the Huracán, which are phenomenal. If anybody's ever going to spec one,
when I sat in them, they look
super comfortable too.
They look like it's just a shell of carbon fiber with some padding on it, but they were really comfortable to sit in.
Not to be confused with the race seats.
I haven't sat in those,
the race
so I'm
seats
not
are
sure.
Completely.
Not good for long road trips, I guess.
I mean, they're just horrible to even sit in for 5 minutes. It's not a cool car.
Are there any changes to the rear that you've made, or is this a
this is factory? I mean, basically, when you get all of the plastic done in gloss black, it mimics and follows here, 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 which again takes the plastic look away. And doesn't make it feel cheap. And then we just had the diffuser color match from the factory just to give it a little bit of a rear-wheel drive look, different from the all-wheel drive, which usually has the black diffuser.
Yeah, I think the facelift, the Evo, this ducktail here, it makes a huge difference as well because it sends off the design.
The car is just so much better than the regular Huracán. It's just not even funny. It's like I call the regular Huracán one of the biggest scams Lamborghini ever pulled out of.
Because they knew they were going to make this eventually.
I mean, I think the platform was good, but the quality was so cheap, the interior was cheap, and they did such a good job on this with the interior, minus the fact that it doesn't have a knob for the stereo. Everything else was fantastic.
Okay, it looks fantastic. The best looking Evo I've seen so far.
That's the point.
So what do you think we step it up a couple of cylinders and take out the SVJ?
You got it.
Sweet. Well, that was the Evo. Now we're gonna jump up a couple of cylinders and have a look at the SVJ Roadster that are inside before it gets way too hot out here to do any more filming. A very exciting day. I can't wait to show you the SVJ next. It's gonna be loud. Super Veloce Jota is what SVJ stands for, and it was first introduced by a man named Bob Wallace, and he was the test driver and engineer for Lamborghini in the 1970s, and he looked at the Ferraris and the Porsches that was out on the track at the time, and he thought, I want to make a Miura that is more track focused and can compete with the Ferraris and Porsches of the time at the track. He had the entire Lamborghini factory at his disposal to create a Miura SVJ, and that's exactly what he did. And the name SVJ has since been retired. The Miura was the only one that had the SVJ name added to it until today with the Aventador SVJ Roadster right here. This is one out of 800 Roadsters. They built 800 Roadsters and 900 coupes for the Aventador SVJ, and it's powered by a naturally aspirated V12, putting out 760 horsepower. 0 to 60, about 2.7 seconds with a top speed of 220 miles per hour. So you might ask yourself, it looks similar to a SV. So what exactly is the difference between the SV and the SVJ? Well, it's a lot of differences on the outside, in particular when it comes to the aerodynamics, because this has active aerodynamics. What that means is that it can funnel air depending on if you're taking a curve or if you're going in a straight to make the car more slippery and less drag, or you can have it more downforce, for example, in the corners. And in the rear, the wing itself can adjust the wind flow so that you have 20% more downforce on one side of the car to corner better and to have the car more planted as it goes through the corners. And also, you keep the car more planted and you bring more speed through the corners. The numbers are pretty similar on paper when you compare it to an SV. For example, 0 to 60, 2.7 seconds, pretty much the same as the SV, and the top speed 220 miles per hour, also pretty much the same as an SV. But the important thing here is how much of that speed can you carry through the corners, and that's where the active aerodynamics of the SVJ comes in. It's actually 15 seconds faster around the classic Nürburgring than the SV, even though the numbers seems to be very similar. And as I'm sure you know, the Aventador came out in 2012 with the regular LP700, actually 690 horsepower four-wheel drive. And then in 2015, they upgraded to the SV, or they came out with the SV, which has 740 horsepower. And in 2016, we got the Aventador S, which puts out 730 horsepower. So they just dropped it by 10 horsepower to not have it compete with the SV, I guess. And then we have this from 2000. Came out in 2018. As I said, they build 800 Roadsters, 900 Coupes, 760 horsepower, and I think it's a fantastic final tribute to the Lamborghini naturally aspirated V12 engine. So the changes in the front here for the SVJ compared to, let's say, the SV or the regular Aventador S is you have this massive carbon fiber front splitter right here, and these air intakes on the side and in the middle for the brakes, and the power steering motor as well. And on top of that, you have these funnels in the hood of the car that channels air through the nose of the car and up over the car. And in typical Lamborghini fashion, what we have, one of the key design elements of any Lamborghini are these line right here, this V that goes from wide in the bottom right here to narrow up top and continues onto the roof. That is one of the signatures, designs or lines that every single Lamborghini has if you look at them up close. And of course, you usually have a sticker that says ALA here for the active aero, but in this case we don't have that. We have an entirely black lower front splitter, and you can see the active aero bits right here, these two panels that flap up or down depending on what you're doing on the track. For example, if you're going fast, they probably fold down. If you want more traction on one side of the car, they probably fold up or down depending on how you're driving. Let's talk about the rear end design here. For example, we now have two bazookas in the middle instead of where the license plate goes. So usually the license plate on the regular Aventador sits right here where the exhaust sits. It's now been moved to down here. And on top of that, we have this massive active aero spoiler that I mentioned before. So air goes in here, and then it channels into the wing and is funneled to each side depending if you're cornering or if you're going straight. And what I love about this cover up here is that it looks like it was taken straight from the F-117 Nighthawk stealth bomber. Like they took a panel of that plane, just smacked it on top of this car, and this is what turned out. And the rear view from the inside is pretty much non-existent. However, you do have a small little window that you can look out from. And also, this is all open. In traditional Lamborghini fashion, you can stick your hand through here and feel different parts of the mechanics and the engine. Now, when you're designing a car from scratch, what you start with is always the side view. And that gives you the proportions and the overall volumes of the car you're working on in an overview. The best view, if you want to have one view where you can see the proportions and volumes of a car, it has to be a side view. In this case, this is a typical Lamborghini side view going all the way back to the Countach. The same three key lines, which you probably can make out in this car, but it's more visible on the regular Aventador because here we have added parts and arrows added to the car. But we still have, for example, a typical Lamborghini line is the roof line. That's almost a continuous curvature going from the rear right here, from here, and then it just swoops down into the A-pillar. And if you look at where the A-pillar is actually located, it's above the front axle. It's almost centered right above the front axle right here. So that creates this raked look in the front, and you have the A-pillar almost going in the same line as the hood in the front, creating this raked typical Lamborghini line. The second line, which I love about the Aventador, is the shoulder line, or in this case the belt line. And the belt line is this line right here. You can see that it follows all the way throughout the car, and as you know, if you watched my videos before, you know that I like to have at least one line that you can follow throughout the car, and that kind of wraps around the design and comes back and then fades away, but you can still follow it with your eyes. And that would be this line right here. It starts here in the bumper, and then you can see that it fades in right here and then comes back very strongly, creating this massive SVJ air intake, which is a lot larger, by the way, than a typical S or SV, and then it continues up here and just slopes back into the rear. Now, when Lamborghini designed this car, they wanted to have all the mechanics inside of the wheelbase. They didn't want to have anything sticking out here or in the front. And what this does is, if you have all the mechanics within the wheelbase of the car, it creates a very planted and well-balanced car, and that's exactly what they achieved with the Aventador, and even more so with the Aero that's on the SVJ. So I just have to show you this interior here as well, because the color combination between the black and the orange just makes the whole car pop like crazy. And then you have the same orange inside coming back in the calipers. There's with these bronze anarchy wheels right there with the center wheel lock. Beautiful car, beautifully spec'd, just like pretty much all of PJ's cars. It has a good taste in spec. I don't think it's overly done as you would normally see, or you would see a lot if you go further south towards Miami. You start seeing Lambos with chrome wheels and stuff like that. It just ruins the entire car, but this is tastefully modified and tastefully upgraded, I would say, almost like it came out from the factory that way. That's about it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. A big thank you to Pejman Ghadimi for letting me review and have a look at his beautiful cars right here. If you want to know more about him, I'll link his Instagram down in the description. And also go check out his program called Exotic Car Hacks, where he helped people like you and me get our first exotic and drive it for a while without losing any money. It's actually a really cool program that's helped a lot of people get into some really cool cars. Thanks again for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.